don't want to degenerate into patronizing or lecturing. But I think we need to do better. I need you to indicate the individuals.
Yes.
Whom you found guilty to have committed a violation, come with them. Because we need to go now to, you call it what and shame?
Naming and shame.
Name and shame. Because sometimes it helps. Name and shame. So, if it may please you, Chair and colleagues, we now need names of people who the Commission has found guilty to have committed violations. So don't just give us, you know, we've handled this number, we've awarded this, now we need more meat on it. We now need more meat on it. And don't say soldiers did this. Go ahead and tell us which soldiers.
Yes.
Sergeant Katuntu, you put it there.
Kopolo Sejitoleko.
Koporo Mpuga.
Thank you, Honorable Abdu.
They are not common here. The neighbors are from.
Thank you, Honorable Abdu.
And private Zijan.
Thank you, Honorable Abdu. Now that takes us to the other.
Done. Oh, we are still sacked in the past. That this was an attempt in vain to create an institution to help us improve our human rights observance. Law school at the same time. The commission, of course. And that side, I also see people who used to sit with me this side, and now I see them seated at the other side. So Simon here also, I've known him for years even before he joined. To that extent, I don't know whether that's a conflict, but I think I've disclosed it. And having said that, I would like to remind the Commission that you were a creature of the 1995 Constitution. Before that, you didn't have a Human Rights Commission. And the reason why you were created by the Constituent Assembly are not very difficult to come by. Let me remind you that the preamble to this Constitution that created you stated thus: recalling our history, which has been characterized by political and constitutional instability, recognizing the struggles against forces of tyranny, oppression and exploitation, and 3, and I need to emphasize this, committed to building a better future by establishing a socio-economic and political order through a popular and durable national constitution, which created you, based on principles of unity, peace, equality, democracy, freedom, social justice, and progress. It goes on and on. As you execute your duties, I want all of you to remind yourself of this preamble, of the Constitution that created you. This, coupled with your mission, and you state yourselves, the vision of the Human Rights Commission is a society that observes human rights. We envisage a society where human rights are respected, promoted. Do you think it's the correct thing to do? That a country with its sovereignty must go.
You're presenting.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
You know, violation of human rights is personal. It's in personam. We need these persons who have been victims and awarded and how much. We also need the perpetrators of these actions so that we have a list. Others may appear perennially. You see the first perpetrator here coming again and again and again. And then we need to question, why is this particular person appearing several times on the same cause? So we need details. We need the figures. You mentioned that you found 35 prisons. You visited prisons and found so many people who are being detained, who have been on remand for a very long period of time. We need to know these names so that we follow up and know who has been detained for how long and why. Because when you talk about human rights, we are talking about human beings. We are talking about individuals. We need to know these individuals and find a solution because it's now a problem. So if 100 people are being detained in Arua, who are these 100? What are their details? What did they commit? And why have they been on remand for this very long period of time? That will help us to avoid the 20 years he's talking about, because we know the individuals we are addressing. Now, to that, Madam Chair, my colleagues have spoken about the incidents of Kawempe, and specifically
managed to benchmark and get other new partners to support the activities of human rights. Chair, on the issue also of refugees, I've seen here there is even a report which is in process of human refugees who are here in Uganda. So that one will have more than extra mile, and it's very important. Uganda, when you assess, we get a large number of refugees who are coming in, and you have efforts. But as you are fighting for the rights of refugees, have you labored much compared to the citizens' rights compared to refugees? Because here, even there is even what you noted, that there was even a negative attitude from leaders towards the refugees. In your assessment, what is the cause of that? There is a table here, table 11. There is where you are mentioning Central 106 received complaints, 40 Poto 123, Soroti 120, Masaka also. So, as you are mentioning other areas of the country, you are very particular at 40 Poto, Soroti. Then here, why are you not mentioning that Eastern, Western, what? But here you are coming to centralize the Central, then you mention in Masaka. Is the Masaka in Central or in other parts of this country? Last one. Which basis or which measure do you take to pick URA, Minister of Education and Gender, Kasita, to be part of your consultative bodies? Or if I'm not mistaken, I've seen Kasita, if not Kasita. What was the basis to reach those entities? Chair, I thank you.
You look at the trend in all the by-elections since the last election, they've been highly militarized. And I sincerely hoped that the Commission would, in its budgeting, reflect knowledge of this, if not expressly, at least impliedly. I do share the concerns that Honorable Basalira raised in reference to the priorities of your allocations, especially Table 17 as he cited. Now, I'd like to know the position of the Commission on your interactions with courts of judicature, because your mandate is broadly to government. There are different arms of government. We have seen severally accused persons being produced in court with visible signs of torture, and the judicial officers even being shown those signs of torture. You have also had complaints on your table over the same. As the Human Rights Commission, what is your position on that, and how are you prioritizing interacting with courts of law that are continuing to charge and remand visibly tortured persons who are produced before them? And on a lighter but more serious note, the commission is expected to be an impartial commission. But I many times get the feeling, or through your actions, you communicate that you're a very partial commission. I would like to ask specifically Commissioner Honorable Simeo. I have seen photos of you on public engagements in Kasanda with the Prime Minister in her capacity as an NRM mobilizer, not as Prime Minister. I really would like to know, though, that interaction in Kasanda particularly, was it in the line of your execution of your duty as a commissioner? I'm saying this because these are concerns. We are members of the public, and it's important that we have faith in this institution, which, for lack of a better word, or just quite frankly speaking, we do not have because of how partial you are. So I would really like to get that concern addressed. Was it in line of investigating human rights violations? What is the interaction that you have? Yes, please.
For Parliament again, I think the issue would be, when is he resigning from the commission to be able to engage in partisan activities? That's the information.
To say, give us some money to see whether we are performing well in human rights. Does that make common sense, really? I refuse, I reject an idea of begging for money for purposes of human rights observance. Who commits these human rights violations? It is us. Against who? Ourselves. Whom do you want to fund that one? Foreigners. It doesn't make common sense to me. We need now to move away from begging for this sort of funds to do this sort of thing. That's why I'm a little bit excited by Trump. President Trump, I think, he wakes us up. You must wake up and look for own money to sort out our own mess. Because some of this is man-made. I must say, Mr. Chairman, some of this human rights violation is man-made. It's not a disaster. It's just human-made by us, which we can stop. Who tells you to beat up journalists? And then you go and say, please, Americans, give us money to investigate how we've beaten up journalists. You guys, wake up, please. Give us money to go and investigate how we've locked up people without trial. Please help us with some money why we've remanded too many people in Ruzira, those who are not even on trial. By the way, Madam Chairperson, we have another problem. People who are on remand. We got a case the other day, I don't know whether you picked it up, which came on the floor. Somebody had been on remand for 20 years. 20 years on remand. And you just imagine that's the family of that person, or even us, how we are looking at the Human Rights Commission, seated comfortable asking for these billions, when somebody is just in Ruzira on remand for 20 years. No trial, on remand. On remand, 20 years. A kid who was born when he was first remanded is now 20 years. One was a 20-something. 29. And I thought you people, you have picked up that, and these are the sort of cases we would expect you to be handling. They may not even need bigger resources. But if you sit in your office that you don't have money to do your core mandate, Yes, sir, please.
Chair, may we know, because there was a policy shift 3 or 4 years ago, that once a violation is established, the compensation should come from the budget of the end.
Action that I'm particularly referring to happened, and it's outside the statutory guidelines and the time stipulated by the law. No, I'm not, sir. Thank you very much. But nonetheless, anyway, that's my question. And the commission should really reflect on it, because I am sharing a concern of the public that you are partial and partisan.
You did nothing. But you had the salaries, you had everything, the vehicles had fuel and so on. But the core functions, you had done less than 1%. For heaven's sake, if you are going to use less than 1% of the resources available to you to do your core mandate, can you meaningfully say you have done anything? I don't know whether this is economics or it is common sense. So, in November, you get the supplementary. But like our colleague has said, supplementary under the Public Finance and Management Act should always come in where the activities are not what? Foreseeable, and they are also unavoidable. Just look at how the money which you got, and this time you get 10.4 billion. Research and civic education, was it foreseeable? Inspection and monitoring government compliance and human rights standards, was this foreseeable? Complaints management, foreseeable? Retooling, salary enhancement, social security, none of this was not foreseeable. Actually, it was maybe an adjustment of their budget, but to attain to foreseeables. But even this foreseeable, Madam Chairperson, you get 10 billion. How much of this goes to your staff, the 10 billion? Salary enhancement, 2 billion. Yes? So that's already 20%. Social security contribution, 378. Contractual gratuity, 650. Maintenance of equipment, all this is really foreseeable. The only money which goes to the core mandate, I think, is contract complaints management, which is 517, which is, if you that is how much in terms of percentage, 5%? Because you have gotten 10.4 billion. And then the rest is inspection and monitoring compliance. Actually, inspection and monitoring compliance takes 910 million, which is 9%. And this one is if you are going to inspect, you are moving, allowances for staff and so on. Really, it goes towards, it's a little bit of core, but not core. Then you go to research and civic education. I think, Mr. Chairman, we need to know more about this research and civic education. Let's pay research. How you've spent this money, we needed it in writing. Where's the, I don't know whether you're the accounting officer or you're the secretary. You are? That's also coming right with the Yes, we want the breakup of this. Because to me, when we avail for you resources, I want the majority of those resources to go to the core function of the commission. But if you are spending less than 20% to the core functions, then we created this Human Rights Commission for purposes of jobs, where we employ our people, Sometimes, like in the first quarter where you didn't have even a single penny to do your work, you sat in the offices. Because just imagine, of the 20 billion, you spent only, core function is it how much? Did you spend even 500 million? 105 million. To the core function, 105 million. My brother Honovo Basaliza Kano Omudumizi. When he was here, we had a nickname for him. We used to call him Omudumizi. But that one wasn't a Kano then. Mudumizi as the Yame commander. So you can see that you're not having enough resources to do your core function. And that makes you less potent, in my view. It makes you less competent. But for us to advocate for more resources, you must prove that you deserve them. I don't want to be advocating for more resources for purposes of people comfortable in the offices, when the performance, the observance of human rights is wanting in the country. Are we now proud that our country has moved a little bit, a step better in the observance of human rights? Or we are at the level we were before we created the Uganda Human Rights Commission? Do we have that research that we have moved and we are happy that the situation is certainly far, far better than it was before you people came into existence? And when I say you, I'm meaning the commission. Some of you could be new, but I'm looking at the performance of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Sometimes we had a lot of expectation during the constitutional making, and that's why we created this institution. And like I reminded you, it was because we are recalling our history.
MDAs which are violating the rights are not paying the victims. So the policy shift should also be addressed along the same.
Yeah, you see what used to happen? All this would go now to the Attorney General's chamber. Journalists being tortured publicly.
Members left raise their concerns. I hope all the responsible officers are noting. If there are any issues which have been raised and we may need additional information that we do not have here, I would strongly encourage you, Madam Chair, to ask your technical people to get that.
District woman representative of Bugweri County. Because Bugweri County had been granted a district status and they had not elected a woman member of parliament. So I became the acting district woman MP. Thank you very much, Chair. It is true, Mariam, the chairperson of the committee, we happen to have the special accounting officers. If you are the ones committing these torts, or your department, your ministry, what we call MDG, should be able to pick the bills. If it's about Minister of Defense, let Minister of Defense pick the bill. If it's internal affairs, let Minister of Internal Affairs. Then it is possible to know which, I don't know whether when you're making your orders, you're aware about that, and these MDGs are the ones who should be paying. And then you give us the statistics, those MDGs that have paid and those who have not paid, their victims. Then we can follow it up with those particular institutions and asking them why their staff are committing violations of human rights. We need more statistics on this because it helps us as a supervising committee to follow it up. Mr. Chairman, I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Senior Abdu Katuntu. But along the same lines, Honorable Abdu, we need also the names of the particular individuals of perpetrators in this area.
Are you satisfied yourself that your performance as a commission answers to these targets which the Constitution set you to achieve? Do you think the people of Uganda you are serving, and I repeat, do you think the people of Uganda you are serving are happy with your performance? Mark yourselves. You see, it is not what you say or you tell us. It is what you do. I repeat this. It's not what you say, what you claim to be, but what you actually do. That is the most and critical issue. I don't know, Madam Chairperson. There was a lady, I was watching TV, she's your staff, who was in Kawempe. Is she in this room? The one you deployed who was in Kawempe. She was on TV. Is she in this room? When all of us were seeing brutalities on TV, she was on the very TV thing saying everything is moving smoothly. I almost froze, Madam Chairperson. You see, just then she would have said it. Everybody was like hiding in shame because of what was going on in Kawempe. And she was on TV saying, no, everything has moved on smoothly and so on. And by the way, what we observed as public in Kawempe was not only on the election day. It had been building up over some time. The people of Uganda expected at that time your voice. They did. They expected your voice. And you were quiet. You only came in at the end with some sort of statement. Actually, in English, we call it postmortem. Instead of like, when these things were happening, you should have moved in and talked to the stakeholders that is not what you expect the process to be. Honorable Simeo, you've been in this house, and my two colleagues here, you've been here. My old girl, we were in law school, we were taught fairness. That's what we are taught. We are taught the law to observe the law. How do you go and justify and portray a rosy picture when things are not going well? That's when even those who will be talking about you in bad faith will be taken to be correct, because you don't make your case better. I leave that to you, and I don't want to patronize, but remind you that this is what we as a public, this is what we expect you to do. If you take that counsel in good faith, let me go to your document. Mr. Chairman, when you look at the performance, let us look at the first quarter of the financial year. You were allocated, it's on page 2. You allocated 20.5 billion. Yes? And of this 20.5 billion, the money which went to do the core function is 0.523%. So,
Commission, whether that is being followed up, and probably no, whether you're following up even their budgets that once their money is deducted, they don't ask for a supplementary to replace the same money that has been deducted from them.
And that policy shift came from?
And that's a very serious challenge.
It is. Maybe we need to advise the Commission to us.
But Madam
This is
Chair,
budgets.
that is the whole spirit of the ministerial policy statements, to dissect and have an opportunity to look at the figures and attach them to the functions of the entity and the activities planned.
We're going to do things differently, please.
Honorable Chair, we had touched on that matter. You see, when we informed them of budgeting for other things, that's what I meant. Because I could not accept that now the whole Uganda Human Rights Commission has gone to a primary school. Now we are establishing a what? The Human Rights and Peace Club. As if the primary schools are the ones violating, abusing the rights. That's what they are telling us.
So where do you want them to be?
No, I actually commented here that I think when we retreat, most of the expenditures here do not meet the test of appropriation. For me, that's what I identified here. If you examine them one by one, and I just gave that example amongst the many. I told you about the portrait.
The portraits, 40.
How the portrait now is going to help the whole country. Buying a new portrait, it's going to help the whole country about human rights relation. So there are quite a number of them when you look through, which had invited their attention to.
But Jonathan, there are no figures. A budget is about figures.
Honorable Chair.
Yeah, a budget is about figures.
This is how the PBS presents it, but we'll get it detailed outside.
No, it's about taking Parliament for granted. Hey.
Sorry, Honorable Chair. We were requested to present as is prescribed in the Act. So this is a national dialogue on peaceful elections conducted. Was still inadequate to meet the needs of the institution. So
The core mandate. And actually that is our biggest problem.
Chair, as long as the institution is open, operating, and there's no downsizing of the institution, that means that gap which was not filled in has got to be filled in with additional money.
Secretary,
so that the
what
institution
is
can operate.
operating when you have no resources to do your core mandate? And you are talking about operating.
Chair,
Open, yes. People are going to the office and so on. Yes, but the problem of them having resources to do their job, their core mandate, that's what we're asking. I don't know whether we're on the same page. You appreciate our concern?
Chair, I appreciate your concern. I don't know how else to put it. But the Commission has inadequate resources, so constrained that it cannot...
Allow me just get a small clarification on this very issue. Yes, on page 3, where we have the supplementary. My question would be, with the limited resources that they are, whether allocated or supplementary, for example, we are saying our core mandate is to have these complaints managed very well. We have number 1, where we have research and civic education. We are having 1.2 billion. We are having complaints management with 517 million. Why, for example, wouldn't we allocate more resources on the core mandate amidst the available limited resources?
Now, the chairperson came in right and said they appreciate a challenge in budgeting. And I think that's where it stems from. Once she admits that, then let's aspire for a better approach than the previous one. Otherwise, the current one, Madam Secretary, is not satisfying at all. And let's work towards having improved budgeting approach. Yes, that one will not hold water here.
Thank you, Chair. That's appreciated. We will handle it as advised. Thank you.
Concerned about our findings in places of detention. Honorable members, places of detention are many. We have military detention places, police, prisons, remand homes, and many others. But let me concentrate on prisons and the military because I think they're the ones that took the bulk of the day. In Uganda, we have 256 and 65 prisons. And in these prisons, currently, we have over 80,000 inmates. If you go to Luzira, if you go to Chitalia, you will find them sleeping neck to neck. It is so bad, honorable members, that if you go there, which we often do regularly and unannounced, they're in a dire condition. The question has been, do we build more prisons or we change the criminal justice system? Do we concentrate on community service? But we have raised this time and over again. And I'm glad the members have picked up on this. When you ask some of the findings, of course, prisons has made tremendous efforts to keep them clean, to make sure there are no breakup of diseases, and to make sure there is discipline and security. But the issue of overcrowding and congestion is so dire in prisons. This we have to handle as a country. There were concerns of why we went to Gulu and not the military facilities in and around Kampala. Now, sometimes you hear of an incident and you decide to go to that place. That is why we went to Gulu to see whether there were civilians there, and unfortunately the people we found were military men in uniform being detained there, and the conditions were not bad. But like you have raised, we shall also try and again visit. Now we are reporting on a particular financial year. Previously we have gone to military, but we can't go there over and over again. So we shall go back to the ones in and around Kampala as requested. So we pledge to handle that. The nature of crimes, as I don't know which honorable raised that. In our prisons, we have many crimes, murder, manslaughter, the whole 9 yards. But I think that the ones that top the list are theft, assault, burglary, defilement. But unfortunately, most of the ones who are dealing with defilement, when you ask them, they tell you it is land matters or land disputes. But prisons have said, okay, this is what we are dealing with. So there is house breaking, defilement, murder is not so high, but theft, burglary, assault. Those are the highest criminal offenses that we have. The category that we have, and I think it's very important that we recognize this, majority of these are uneducated, semi-educated, between the ages of 19 and 36, 37. So you realize that these are prime ages where people are supposed to be very productive. So that calls for employment. We also note that majority are coming from humble beginnings, and many of them cannot access lawyers. So those are challenges that we note. The other issue that we had was, do we catalog the detainees that we find in particular? Now, I have said that we have 80,000 prisoners. Those are so many people. It's a full country, almost a full country of Mongolia that has 1 million people. If we have 80,000 people in places of detention. Now, we catalog the ones, for example, those that have been pending ministerial orders. I think Honorable Katuntu mentioned someone who was detained for 27 years. Those are the names that we submitted to the Chief Justice, and we also submitted them to the Minister of Justice. And some of them, because of our communication, the chair's letter to the Minister of Justice, it led to the release of 130 inmates who were pending ministerial orders. These people had been waiting for justice for the longest time, and prison was even struggling with them because some of them had mental illnesses, and they were waiting for the minister to make a decision about their mental capacity. And we had argued that, look, these people actually need a psychiatric institution, not a prison. They are sick. And unfortunately, there were court orders for them to be in prisons. Prisons were saying, hey, human rights help us. Unfortunately for us, we can only use the pen. I'm glad the chairperson did that, and 130 were released. However, there are still some more who we have requested that action also needs to be done. They've taken so long in prison, and we're happy that some of them were released. Thank you, Madam.
They are fixed costs. But, the fixed cost curve, you know the shape of the fixed cost curve? The shape of the fixed cost curve, you know how it looks like? It's fixed. And you know why the average cost curve is a rectangular hyperbola? You know why? You are given more resources. It cannot be that the fixed costs actually go up because the fixed cost curve is flat. I don't think she has supplied an answer to the question relating to allocation of the supplementary on other non-core functions of the Commission. Mr. Chairman, unless she supplies a different answer, that does not satisfy me.
She still has a second chance.
And we are not asking you to investigate particular cases that are pending. But like Ms. Sekin says, you can observe a general trend for which it is within your right to engage the judiciary. People on remand. You're not talking about particular individual, this particular one, and so on. But you've got those figures because you visited. Because the majority of those people are they on remand. And it has led to a violation of rights. Can't you engage the judiciary and say, look here, what you are processing halfway is causing a crisis. Then they can address it internally. You are not investigating those cases, individual cases. I think that is what the law would buy you. But generally, if there is a general problem, you can engage the judiciary. And that's not even interfering with their independence.
Honorable Chair, and just in light of engagement to the judiciary, I request the Chair to...
Opposite police headquarters and Masaka. So Masaka is an independent region as far as we are concerned. It was carved out of Central. But similarly, like in northern Uganda, we have 2 regional offices. We have a regional office in Igulu and regional office in Irira. The reason why Honorable Secretary and Honorable Mpuga raised that issue, it is within the public domain that the map of Uganda excludes Buganda as a region. But for us as UHRC, these are our administrative units, as my chair has mentioned. It has nothing to do with the map of Uganda. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the map of Uganda, and it has always been even before them.
By the Lira City, Soroti, and Masaka. So the process of acquiring title is on, so we have to open boundaries. So it's the reason why we mentioned something to do with subdivision of the land.
That was raised.
Yes.
A priority vis-a-vis the electioneering period. Was it the most...
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Listening in to observations and comments raised by you and
with local governments on mainstreaming human rights and NSSF, there are a percentage of wage. This is where the increase is. So we take gratuity, NSSF, those are mandatory requirements.
Mr. Chair, I think let us not go in what is obvious.
Yes.
We all know that. But can you get our major point of concern?
Yes.
That you have a budget and 1% of that budget is what you are using to do your core mandate. That's the point. These are the issues. We all know that. It's really basic in my view. We know it. But our concern is why do we, it's like I've seen, you said there was salary enhancement. But the people who are whose salary is being enhanced are not doing anything because there is no money for them to do their duties. I don't know whether you get our concern and our point.
But was medical expenses also a function of salary increment? Additional medical expenses?
Honorable Chair and members, what the Commission requested for was additional funding. It came to us in form of a supplementary. And there was a funding gap of rights developed and designed in Luganda, Lusoga, Runyankore, Ruchiga, and Rutoro, Runyoro, and 1,900 copies printed, annual subscription to the consortium of university libraries, and then annual subscription to the UPPC paid, annual subscription to online law library paid. Chair, this totals 770 million, but we can provide the breakdown for each of those items, Chair, if you can allow us.
Honorable Abdu, what are you saying?
You see, and this is where the problem is. When
kakati akakiiko k'ebyokulonda ke kavunaanyizibwa ku kulonda nsuubira nti ke kagenda otukakasa nti okulonda mu mwaka ogujja kujja kuba kwa mazima nga kugoberera amateeka naye ffe ng'abakakiiko k'eddembe ly'obuntu era ng'Abannayuganda tuwa obweyamu nti okulonda okwo kujja kuba kwa mirembe. Ffe tujja kukola omulimu gwaffe okugezaako okutangira obumenyi bw'amateeka nga tukolaganira wamu n'ebitongole ebikuumaddembe, kubanga tetuukiriza nti ebitongole bye bitulugunya abantu oba bye bimenya amateeka, naye abantu mu ebyo ebitongole be bamenya amateeka. Yensonga lwaki tugenda kubavunaana abo abemulugunyibwako banamawulire tugenda kubavunaana. So fenga Human Rights Commission tuwa obweyamu nti okulonda kujja kuba kwa mirembe. Era tukubiriza bannayuganda bonna okwetanira akalulu ako abatanaba kufuna ze national identity card mugezeeko okulaba nti okulonda okwo tukwetanira aidha nga abalonzi oba nga bakandidate.
Let me begin by saying that
school human rights clubs, school human rights and peace clubs established.
Amanya gaabwe gandeetere tulabe tugende mu records tulabe babasibira misango ki. Sirowooza nti okwesimbawo mu kalulu oba okunoonyeza candidate w'obuwagizi ogwo si musango. So bwe babaawo bonna be basiba olw'okunoonyeza bakandidate baabwe obuwagizi oba okukuba akalulu, amanya gaabwe gandeetere.
Era pozira okwongereza ku ekyo.
Madam Accounting Officer, what are you saying?
I'm saying we submitted the work plan Annex 2 on the documents, and we have details.
But the mercenary you have brought is saying he doesn't have the details.
Director Research, Education and Documentation. Now, some of the comments raised, it would appear when money is seen beside this research and education, a conclusion was made that it is for research, which is not true. It is for Directorate of Research, Education and Documentation. Unfortunately, the details are not captured in that table. In fact, in the next financial year, for which funds we are seeking for here, we don't have a single research. It should be on record. So I thought that should be clarified. So what are the details? The details are dialogues for security agencies. It was also raised here in the paragraph. There was cultural leaders, political parties, and others. But we target security agencies, police, intelligence, UPDF, prisons. Those are the details. Community engagements with the local people.
Okay, excuse me. Now that you consider the details are not captured in the table, how do you expect us to approve or justify that without us knowing the details?
Honorable Chair, the 33-page document delivered by the chairperson is a summary of the annual work plan. All these details are there. Yes, that is the point. Yeah. Secondly,
No, let's sort out one issue. Don't run away.
Planner here has a detailed work plan, and I'm very sure of what I'm saying, Honorable Chair. What the chairperson presented is a summary. In fact, we don't have a single research proposed for next financial year.
First, understand it from this perspective. No one is doubting what you're saying. What we are asking for are the details. And we need to add flesh to the skeleton you have given us so that we know what we are approving.
And we haven't come across any such entry as a political prisoner. So for us, we may not know. Maybe the public may judge that on their own. For the filers, we even have judgments from the courts where these and charge sheets, and even some of them have served the sentence. So that one is very clearly documented. We are able to know. Chairman, this word central region is just our administrative language. Like we have 12 regional offices. We have one in Masaka. But this, maybe we should change the name, this name Central, to.
Recently there was a map of Uganda which provided the water. That's why it's becoming a sensitive issue. It has been, I know it has been the description even before, but because of the recent development, that's why it's becoming an issue of concern. Yes.
Yeah. Honorable Chair, for our case, Central Region here.
Person. We look at the commission as our first line of defense.
Oh, you ought to?
Yes, you ought to. Once it is broken, we are in trouble. That's why we are trying to be hard on you. You are supposed to be our critical line of defense. And once you are weak, like it seems, then we are in trouble. So please, the Constitution has placed faith in the Commission. And don't fail us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Listening to Honorable Asmani Basalirwa on budget priorities, I think we should consider that the way he put it, that our mandate or our functions in the order in which they are written in the Constitution requires that there should be a match of the budget to those functions. We take in good faith the observation that the investigation of complaints and giving redress to victims of human rights violations should attract a bigger allocation. And I think this one we should just say we have learned this from Honorable Basalirwa and the committee. But I think I came here with a technical team. Maybe the concerned director of research, education, and documentation, plus the accounting officer can explain why this directorate takes, let me call it maybe a lion's share of the resources. But we undertake to increase allocation to the complaints handling role. I want to say I agree with that one 100%. I think the best weapon we have to deter violations of human rights is hearing cases and giving redress to victims and punishing or recommending punishment to the perpetrators. Let me request Margaret Ejang, the accounting officer, to say something about why this, we call it RED, Research, Education and Documentation.
The seventh paper. Sorry, Chair.
4,
the seventh.
5, 6, and 7. So the second last, before blue. Okay?
We have research, education, and documentation.
Honorable Chair, I would like to draw the Commission's attention to page 7, under table 3, among places of detention inspected. And I see that for the military detentions, the Commission chose Gulu of all places in the country. My question is, what informed your choice of Gulu of all places? And
Mr. Chairman, you see, when you come late, you run a risk of regurgitating. The issue being raised by Honorable Zijana has been raised by Honorable Jonathan Odoro. Mr. Chairman, is it in order for a member who has come late to raise an issue that has already been raised? Is he in order?
you see, Mr. Honorable Basalirwa, the Honorable Zijana will raise other issues that have not been raised before going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And for Basalirwa's information, I have not even raised the issue. So he really doesn't even know what I am going to raise. What was the Commission's finding resulting from this visit? And is your finding, in your opinion, a sufficient representation of the state of affairs touching human rights in as far as the military is concerned? Number two, I will invite you to page 29 and table 19.2, where you seek to spend 2 billion shillings for purposes among which is training of the media in human rights and conflict-sensitive reporting. Now, from the public's observation, Madam Chairperson, the media, all members of the media, have been victims, if we are to draw examples from the likes of Kawempe. We have seen the media being brutalized by institutions of government, for example, JAT. And as a strategy to address some of those things, you seek to educate the media on how to report sensitively. But isn't that ironic, Honorable Chair, that you seek to educate the victim on how to report concerning human rights violations when they are being violated, when their rights are being violated themselves? Isn't that strategy upside down? Do you also, in the same spirit, seek to train the violators? Do you have a strategy of training JAT, for example, on how to handle the media with the spirit of human rights in these situations? Or you feel that it's my feeling that you are going to train the victim because you really can't face the perpetrators themselves? Is there a strategy? And if there is, of training JAT, kindly guide me to that in the document. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zijan. Finally, Madam Chairperson, you spoke about
whatever you have raised, we take it in good faith, and we are going to address most of these issues. But Honorable Chair, particularly let me answer my sister here, Honorable Deke. It is true, on Thursday, 13th February 2025, myself and the Right Honorable Prime Minister Robin Anabanja, we appeared on a function in Kasanda. This was a burial ceremony. As you are aware, I'm a born and a resident of Kasanda. So I had gone to attend the burial of a resident of my area. By coincidence, this was a relative of the Prime Minister. I don't know if you have had the chance to travel that part of the country. Kasanda and Kakumiro were almost neighbors. So some of our relatives are in Kasanda. So I had come to attend the burial of a relative. During the ceremony, I was requested to welcome her. I did that part effectively, and there was no politics. This was a burial ceremony, and that was it. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
We pray that you continue with that spirit of compassion.
But let me give just a few examples. One, Honorable Chair and members, when we learned from the media that Dr. Besigye had disappeared in Kenya, we did not receive any complaint from his family before we started the investigation together with our counterparts, the National Human Rights Institution in Kenya. But as their investigation was underway, we saw on TV that he was appearing before the court martial. There are just so many. We began an investigation into the issue where we saw an online video of a woman being dragged in a drainage in Mbarara by police officers. But by coincidence, as our investigation was underway, we learned that the IGP had swung into action and the culprits were already facing trial. we lodged an investigation into torture of students in, this was particularly in southwestern Uganda, in Ntungamo in particular. And again, police had already swung into action, and several others. And so we are executing that role. On the awards, Honorable Basalirwa said the awards we give to victims of human rights violations are meager, to use his word. These awards are determined by factors. There are factors which determine quantum of damages, and we follow them. One of them, of course, is the gravity. I mean, if it is torture, the gravity of the torture, the impact. Sometimes the impact may be long-term. Sometimes it may be short-term. I'm aware that protection from torture is an absolute right under Article 44 of the Constitution. But let me be honest that sometimes the other factor is the character of the victim. There are victims who are convicted defilers, and this is very common, especially in West Nile. You go to do a session, tribunal session in Arua, and you find about 2/3 of the victims of torture are convicted defilers. So when you are, and they were tortured, yes, when you are assessing damages to be awarded to this victim who defiled his niece, and they are here before you bragging how they defiled their nieces and they slaughtered a ram, and that in our culture, once you, and these girls are as young as 7 years old. So the truth is some of them are tortured during interrogation, but when I'm looking at such a case, there is no way I can award this man who defiled his niece and is almost proud of what he did. And I know that this niece of his has suffered long-term trauma, both mental and physical, and that I ignore that fact. So those are some of the factors. If this victim of torture is also a convicted defiler, I have to take that into consideration. I concede or I confess I have to award them much less than what I would award an innocent victim of torture who is not convicted of any crime. So those are some of the factors we follow. I sound a bit emotional because I'm a woman who was once a girl, and I know the trauma victims of defilement can suffer forever. They may heal physically, but not psychologically. In West Nile, uncles defile their nieces, and they don't care. I'm not saying this doesn't happen in other regions, but it is worse in West Nile. Sorry, the difference between, I wanted to know the difference between partially investigated cases.
Intentional refusal. There is a lot of deviation from the considerations for bail, and this is a human right. So we invite you to continuously engage courts. I have not seen too much engagement on this with the courts, especially on the right to bail and other rights, because things like long detentions sometimes emanate from these courts, and we need to address them. And then lastly, the January ruling of the Supreme Court in the case of Kabaziguruka created serious human rights issues. Have you specifically paid attention to the human rights issues that were raised in that ruling, and how are you addressing them? We have people who were erroneously detained, and they continue to be detained, and we have not had a clear position of the Uganda Human Rights Commission on this matter. On that note, honorable colleagues, do we have any very, very important issue that must be raised before we get the responses? Because once we get the responses, we need to give them time without continuous interruptions. Thank you very much for your input. Madam Chairperson and the Commission, I invite you to respond to those issues which have been raised.
Obliged, Chairman and members, the concerns raised are many. I don't know.
Thank you,
There is
Chair.
no virtue.
Honorable, thank you very much. Honorable, allow me to comment on the budget of the Commission because there are issues relating to that, and then I come to where the chairperson stopped. So, Chair, you might be aware that the Commission has, over the years, presented funding shortfalls. Allow me to draw from the strategic plan of the Commission, which guides the planning. In the year 2024-2025, we planned according to our strategic plan, and which budget was 75.2 billion shillings. In the budgeting process, we are told to prioritize and bring it down because of the limited resource envelope. So we tried our best and brought it down to 54 billion shillings. And the last meeting we had with the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, we were still further advised to prioritize and bring it down. So we brought it down finally to 33 billion shillings. But the available funds that was given to us during that year was 20.6 billion before we got the supplementary, which I'm going to comment on, of 10.4 billion. So out of the 20 billion shillings, we have a mandatory requirement to provide for all the fixed costs. And when we provide for all the fixed costs, because of the establishment, we come to a mere 107 million shillings for core activities. Because we have the headquarters, we have the 12 regional offices, and we have the 9 field offices. These are established that cannot get rid of, but they need to be facilitated in terms of funding. So when we provide for the for the fixed costs for the establishment, we hardly have any money. The Commission staff, chair, and members are on contracts. So we have the wage, that's a fixed cost. We have statutory allowances, that's a fixed cost. We have gratuity for contract staff, is a fixed cost. We pay rent for all the, for the head office, for the 12, now 11 regional offices, and the 9 field offices. So these costs are big. It's the reason why we had planned for 75 billion. We tried to bring it to 54 billion. Finally, before the committee, we said 33 billion shillings. So we've been asking the Minister of Finance and the relevant stakeholders to give us at least 33 billion shillings, you know, as a bare minimum. So this explains why we come to the 107 million for core activities. What do we do to the fixed costs? We must provide for them because the institution has grown, their structures established, and it has got to continue operating. So we've been asking for additional funding. So in the current year, out of the 33 billion, we were given 10.4 billion shillings. It came as supplementary. Our request was actually additional funding for the commission of 33 billion. But I think the timing, it came at a time when finance was working on supplementaries. They chose to call it a supplementary. So I think this was technical and beyond us, why it came as supplementary. We are aware that supplementaries are for unforeseen, but that technicality arose and they call it a supplementary.
Not technicality,
yes.
It is substantive. Because the public funds are governed by the Public Finance Management Act. There's nothing technical about it. It tells you how public finances are going to be managed. Okay? So there's nothing technical about it. It is substantive.
Chair, that's noted.
I don't want to violate the human rights of the substantive chair. Can I hand the chair back?
Please.
Clarification on that subject, because she's ably representing the reason why they got a supplementary, but it's still.
The Baraza conducted in 12 regional offices, 12 regional dialogues for key stakeholders on elections.
Were brutalized. Do you think, in the eyes of an ordinary journalist or an ordinary Ugandan, you are the first go-to place in case of human rights violation now? Do they have that confidence in you that if an incident has happened, you are the people they are going to first for redress? And that. Yes, because we need the whole intention, like it has been enunciated from the beginning, that you should be the first people to go to in cases of human rights violations. So we need that. You need you to build that confidence. Let me invite Honorable Zijan to make last to make the submissions. Then
can I share with your permission and with the sympathy of Honorable Zijan?
Let me begin by saying that we take in very good faith
in the PBS and present it the way it's easy to understand by the members here. But this is
Chair.
the system-generated, Chair.
Chair, you see, you have presented a document to us. All these figures, we can read them. The only reason why we invite an entity here is that when I ask you particular detail on a matter, you must have it at your fingertip. That's the only reason why we call you here. We have looked at all this, but I want you, as and when I ask you, how much have you put here, you must be able to tell us. So if you come here, following up your document and say, we don't have it, then this meeting as good as that.
Let's give the chairperson a chance to speak to that.
Chairman, we concede. We are going to provide written details and bring them. We don't know how much time you give us, but as soon as possible.
No, Madam Chair and your commissioners, these budgets are
investigated. I thought this was very clear. Partially are those which are still undergoing investigation. Those concluded are those ready for hearing. And then the Kawempe North.
No, that question came in where you mentioned that how long backlog they have all been disposed of, but how partially investigated cases. So you want to
I'm saying there is no backlog. Was informed by the fact that 1,100 cases before the tribunal is very little, considering that we now have at least 3 sessions every month, and that at every session we dispose of about 6 of them. So what I meant was that this is manageable and it should not worry this committee. So we are moving well, honorable members. That's what I meant. Maybe I exaggerated. You know, when you are judging yourself, sometimes you may award yourself higher marks than you deserve, but... All right. Any tangible outcome? Let me request Director Sechindi Ruth, who is the director in charge of this, to say something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try to be brief. On the honourable members raised...
By central, you have said, what do you mean? The central officer, just for someone who's weak.
That point is noted by the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Honorable Sachitoleko, that point is noted by Uganda Human Rights Commission. Thank you.
We may rename it Kampala Regional. Sorry, I should have... Thank you, Honorable. In light of the provisions of Article 53(4) of the Constitution, which says the Commission shall not investigate any matter which is pending before a court or judicial tribunal. I don't know how far we can go with this interaction without offending these provisions. So we are mindful of that. However, it's true we interact, and there are some I don't know whether I'm safe to say this, what we watch, but we are unable to comment. The recent bail terms imposed on Mr. Aaron Kiza, I mean, we were perturbed by these bail terms, especially considering the circumstances that this person was convicted by a court which has since been declared not having jurisdiction of. So, but in light of these provisions, Chairman, we can't go very far in interacting
But Chair, I'm sorry, but this is quite critical.
During the judiciary, also on issues of tortured accused persons being presented before them, which I had earlier on.
Commission can go into prisons and inspect the detention condition. When they go there, they are not saying don't detain this person, but they are saying detain within these minimum standards for human rights. That is what we expect you to engage with the judiciary. We are not saying don't grant bail or don't deny, but it must be on the face of it reasonable and must observe the minimum standards of human rights. For example, some denials in our interpretation amounts to a conviction. The judiciary appears to say we are going to punish you, so where is the presumption which is anchored in law that I am innocent until those are the areas we expect you to engage with there, because the Uganda Human Rights Commission is one of the guarantors of human rights in the Constitution. And you can guarantee this by that interaction.
Thank you, Honorable Jonathan. And even you, Mayor, writing an opinion as Uganda Human Rights Commission on the current trend is in itself sufficient to arm others who would want to advocate against such character. And we invite you to consistently do that.
Most obliged, Chairman. Actually, there is some heads, those interactions, and we have taken note of this. We were requested or asked to provide a list of perpetrators of human rights violations and attach to our presentation next time. Let me say, about half of the cases we hear at the tribunal, the victims don't know the names of the people who torture them for a number of reasons. There are people who don't wear their, I think some police officers wear their name tags on their uniform. But actually let me say the worst cases of torture are such that the victims never get to know the names of the people who torture them. They just describe them, how they were dressed. And there are some people, some security officers who you can't even see their faces. So if we are to require the victims to provide us these names, we will not go far. But where possible, we will provide them. I know there is a case, for example, we decided recently in our session in Lira, where we named the perpetrator and actually recommended that he be prosecuted. This is the former DPC of Lira, who went to a prison, I think in Erute, and he pretended that he was taking this prisoner for further investigations and ordered his execution. So although he's a retired officer today, we got his name, we've recommended that he be prosecuted. So as far as we can, we'll provide those names. But where we are not able, we request that you understand that sometimes we don't get to know them. And Chairperson, I want to thank you and your committee for listening to us.
Violation of human rights during Kawempe by-election, because I don't know whether it will come under the written document, because everyone of us here is very interested in that. Okay. Because why journalists were brutal? Because they noted that even a candidate, himself, Honorable Narukola, it went through a lot. They said, how about the journalist? So handle with whatever. So even the issue of names, the social media is very good, because you find someone focusing a camera and bring a photo. And those people, you know them, but as times you hide them.
The challenge is that
even you have cameras. Why don't we move an extra mile and to go to, if they are looking for a politician, they can just even break the house. Why about that violator? How can we not trace him? Through cameras and other means.